Stephanie, what is a code of ethics?
Code of ethics is a hallmark of every profession.
Mhm.
Because it assures the society that the profession will serve the public good and will provide services that will be provided with acceptable moral
Right.
conduct. And we do that because a profession is characterized by serving a significant social need.
Mhm.
And because it is doing work that is important in the society, then there needs to be an assurance that it will do that job and that professionals will conduct themselves in moral ways. So it is something that defines a profession. If you don't have a code of ethics, you're not a profession at some level.
One of the criteria of what is a profession. Yeah,
exactly. We all come to our work with children, or whatever other work we do, with our personal values, the beliefs of what we believe to be intrinsically worthwhile, and our personal morality, which we learned in childhood and throughout our lives, and those are our views of what's right and wrong. These are an important foundation, but they're not enough to guide professional practice. Each profession has its own values. We just talked about the core values of early childhood education, and each profession in that code has its own ethical commitments. So professional ethics involves reflection on responsibility that is carried out collectively and systematically by the membership of a profession. And that's what we did when we developed the NAEYC Code. This process is documented in the Code of Ethics, which communicates the profession's mission and responsibilities. So codes are based on core values. Those are the agreed on commitments that everyone within the profession has to sign on to those core values. The code spells out the responsibilities of professionals in any profession and helps them address the ethical challenges that they face in their work. An important thing about a code is it lets the profession speak with a collective voice. So everybody isn't saying their own piece of what they think the morality is, but it lets us say who we are as a field, as a profession, not who we are as individuals. And it also helps us to solve the kinds of problems that come up that involve ethics, so we don't have to rely on our personal values and our personal morality.
Right. So in our field, in early childhood education, we have a code. It's a voluntary code. And can you tell us about that? How is NAEYC's Code of Ethical Conduct unique in the world of ethics?
Interesting question. Okay, as I've been reading more since I retired, and I had some time to do some reading, and I've thought more about this, I am more and more persuaded about the importance of our code because the work we do is so important. We are working with children at a critical period in their development, and we are working with children when they are very young and very vulnerable. So what we do has a huge impact on them. So there are discussions about, is early childhood a profession or isn't it a profession? And I feel really strongly now that doesn't matter. We are striving to become a profession, however we define ourselves, but the work we do is critical, and we have great power over young children. I'll talk about that again a little bit later. So engaging with professional ethics helps us to think about our responsibilities and to address some of the situations that we face. It lets us live by ethical standards. If we know and use the code, I think it's very important because of the work we do. The NAEYC Code evolved from the work we did in the mid-1980s that we've talked about, and it continues today. One of the things that we've learned is a code is a living document. You don't write it. I know some professional associations that did. They wrote their code in the 1970s, and there they are. They're done. We're not done. Our field keeps changing. We gain more insight, and so the code is a living document. We talked about that before. The first thing we did was really agree on our core values. So we know who we are. When we begin to look at a situation, we go back and we say, who are we? What do we agree on that we believe in? These values come from the long history of our field, and they form the foundation of the code. So everything in the code and all of our ethical consideration grows from those values. And as I said, that was the most interesting and gratifying part of working on the code is how much agreement we have on our core values. I think that you said what's unique about early childhood. I think the level of our consistent belief in our values and our ability to articulate them is something that was really special and admirable about us. So I talked about the process we went through in identifying what the dilemmas were. The code is divided into 4 sections, and these were identified in the very beginning of our work. The first item, the first section in the code has to do with children, and that was very clear. We all agreed on that. That's our primary commitment. The children come first. But then we have responsibilities to families, and then to our colleagues and employers, and to the community and society, because we are serving our next generation, and we are doing important work for the society. We wish they would recognize it a little more, but we're working on that. Each of the sections, the 4 sections, is divided into 2 parts. The first is the ideals, and those are our aspirations. The ideals are our ideas about who we want to be, what we want to be like. In the best of all possible worlds, this is what all early childhood educators would be like, and this is how they'd behave. So the ideals sort of let us look to our aspirations, let us look to who we want to be. Principles are very different. Principles, that's the second section. So the ideals are all I, labeled I. The principles are labeled P. They are rules of professional conduct. They identify the practices that are required, permitted, or prohibited. They're serious. They're to be taken seriously. And when a principle in a code of ethics says you should, it means you should. And we write the code to say, if you don't do what it says you should do, you are not being ethical in your practice. So when we do revisions, we have to be very careful that we don't put things that we think are nice into the principles.
Right.
We are very serious about the principles.
Well, some are you should, and then some are, and you do have permission to do this as well. Because some of the principles are, if I have a concern about a practice in my program, I have permission to tell somebody about it.
That's right. And it doesn't say you have to.
It doesn't say you have
to. But it does say, because we tend to be a field made up of women who care for little children, so we tend to be really caring, nurturing people. So when
as do the man,
okay, but we tend to be I'm thinking of Carol Gilligan and work on women's morality, but we tend to really want to get along with other people. We tend to not want to confront.
Mm-hmm.
So we are nice. And so sometimes the ethical thing to do is to let someone know when you think that their behavior is not good for children. And the code says you may do that. But it doesn't say you have to.
Right.
But the code does say you may not hurt children.
Right.
That is not optional.